Okay, it's, according to my clock, it's after 10 o'clock. Is everybody ready to start this?
I'm ready.
Yes,
Go ahead, Wayne.
I want to see who is here. Tracy Smith, you're here.
I'm here, Mr. Koch. Elizabeth,
Okay. That means the policy committee is present. Mr. Dietrich, you're here.
yes,
And who else do I have?
So in the room, in the boardroom is Megan Hall, Tracy Long, myself, Patty. Mark is supposed to be coming, but I know we have some visitors and his tour with the visitors is still wrapping up, so he may be popping in a little bit late.
Okay. All right.
I'm also on here, Wayne.
Pardon? Yeah, okay, there's Jeff. Thank you. Okay, we're ready to start.
Okay,
We called to order, had a roll call, I guess. First policy is a whistleblowing policy.
okay, so this has been something the committee's been working on over the last couple of meetings, and we believe it's ready to go forward to the full board.
yep, I agree. I'm not on the committee, but I agree.
Well, you're hearing it ex officio, which, so that's okay.
yes, I totally agree. Thank you all so much.
Okay, does that take care of that?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's move on to naming rights.
So Elizabeth provided this, the attachment for this, and it was something that the committee had discussed, looking over. So Elizabeth made some edits. I think there are 4 different, school district samples there, Elizabeth, that you edited, with suggestions. I thought most of the suggestions that you made in there were reflective of what the committee had discussed. Joni and I had an opportunity to look over those edits, and we believe it's time to kind of condense all of those 4 into one policy, taking the best pieces, because obviously there's a lot of redundancy there.
Yep.
And from there, if we can condense that into one policy, or I think it should definitely go to David Lindsay for review before it comes back to the committee and goes to the board.
Okay, what's the rest of the committee have to say?
May I jump in? Mr.
Yeah.
Koch? Oh, super terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin. I mean, you're absolutely correct. That's why the redundancy, so many of them have the same, a lot of the same things. So it almost looks like one school district started it, and then the other ones, just like we're doing, tweaked it to make it their own. The only question I had was, well, I had 2 questions for everybody. One, the different school districts, some school districts just had the superintendent take care of everything. Other school districts had a committee of 3 people that did not include a board, included 1 board member. Then another school district had a very large committee and even included someone from the public. Well, so what I did was I hybrid made it, and that's why you see, I just made up a name. The advisory committee. I mean, I don't know if it would be a subcommittee, you know, I mean, I guess we'll discuss that after administration takes whatever they want to do out of all of these. So I just want to let you know, I just sort of came up with that hybrid name for the advisory committee. And I also, for the advisory committee, I did a hybrid from what all of these different school districts did. So that way it was flexible, but I don't think it was too secular. So those are the only 2 things. Otherwise, everything else is the same. And again, only one school district added advertising in the same policy. And I think last time you wanted to they were kind of feeling that they want to take the advertising and just make it to a separate one. So that's why I didn't take the advertising out of that one, okay? I hope this was easy to read and everything for everybody. I did the best I could without, without changing it too much, okay? But I appreciate the opportunity, I really do.
Okay, Tracy Smith, anything?
Okay, I'm good. I think Jackie and her team will be able to look over it and condense it, and then we'll be good to go whenever they're ready with it.
Okay,
Joni and
So-
I did have a couple questions for the group, though. So we did notice the committee was there, and it's, I think one of the suggestions was a committee of no more than 3 board members, plus the superintendent, the business manager. Our thought was that the building principal or the appropriate principal should also be part of that, especially if it was going to be something at that building or dedicated to that building.
Yeah.
And then our question was, should that be an ad hoc committee as needed, or is that a formed committee as part of the, the board organization? Those were our 2 questions. And Elizabeth, we both agreed that the advertising would be a separate policy.
Good, good. I'm happy to hear that. That's great.
okay, any further questions or comments?
Well, I love the idea of the principal. And in fact, I don't know if one of the originals actually had a principal, or maybe it said school representative, school building representative. I think that's what it said. I love the idea of the principal. And as far as, what committee it should be in, or should it be an ad hoc committee? I mean, I'll be honest with you, with the, naming rights will probably come up in a bulk time. And then it might go dead. Well, I shouldn't say dead, sorry. It might go, they might not meet for a while. So that's why I really I'm sort of leaning towards ad hoc committee. But I do know naming rights, though. I think I would like to see it up and running, me personally, is ASAP. So however that, whatever the suggestion is, I'm sure it'll work.
Okay, it's been recommended that this be tabled and brought back to the policy committee next month.
That'd be
Oh.
lovely. Thank you so much.
It's going to take a little bit more than a month because we're with the end of the year activities.
Oh, right, graduation.
We're going to need to find time to get this all together. And of course, it's also budget tax season. So it's going to be a little bit longer than that, especially too, I don't know the time frame for getting it back from David Lindsay. So we're working towards it, but I can't guarantee that it'll be ready.
Okay, well then we'll bring it back to the policy committee whenever we meet again.
Do you think August would be safe?
I'm
As a-
shooting for August.
Okay,
I'll do my
fair.
best.
Fair enough, August. It'll be
Okay.
here before we know it.
Anything else on their naming rights? Okay. Naming rights is tabled unless you want to do it by formal action.
No, I think we'll just keep working towards it and we'll bring it back to the committee once it
Okay.
goes through David Lindsay.
Okay. Next is the dress code.
So this was something that an email was received by Mary Ann Clark, who's a candidate for school board and a member of the community. The email went to David, Dietrich, Elizabeth, and I believe Rick Scholes. Mr. Dietrich then forwarded it on to me. Based on the content of the email, it seems that, and I'm just going to summarize so those of you who saw the email can jump in too. Basically summarizing that her question had to do with, do we need to address and look at the dress code policy? Because she believes that someone told her that there are kids in our schools who identify as furries and wear, basically like the headbands, some sleeves and some tails. And her concern was that students wearing tails may be embarrassed if they, someone pulled on their tail or exposed them. So she believed that maybe the committee should, or the board should consider banning tails specifically in a dress code policy. So I asked Mr. Dietrich how we wanted to handle this, and he thought it would be best to bring it through the policy committee for discussion. So the dress code policy was recently completed through the cyclical review of the 200s, and the it was approved by the board in February. I will also say that I reached out to every one of the principals, and every single principal stated that there are absolutely no students who are identifying as a furry or as an animal in any formal capacity whatsoever. We do not have students wearing tails. And so that's the other piece of the story. So I'll let it up to the committee.
Okay, committee, what say you?
Tracy, would you want to go first? Okay,
I-
Mr.
The policy as is good. And I think our principals and administrators are doing a good job upholding everything on their end. So I don't think we need to change it at all.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I appreciate your brevity.
Mr. Koch,
Yes,
if I may, I'll be honest with you, this is just, seems to come up every year. You know, I personally, if we ever have a mascot that's walking through the school or at a game or, I mean, I personally I don't have any problem with a child that wants to wear, rabbit bunny ear headbands, or, but if, I just want to make sure though that Dr. Martin, that your administration has the power that in the dress code, that if a teacher or principal feels, or any other staff member feels that something that, like maybe a child does come with a tail and ears and this and that, and it's just so much of a distraction, that you folks have the legal power to take care of it, so it won't turn into some sort of ridiculous, freedom of whatever lawsuit. That's all. I just want to make sure you folks have the power. Do you guys have the power? If it becomes a distraction or some in the future, do you think, or do you want to get back to us, or?
I would say we do have the authority at any point in time to ban anything that's disrupting the educational process, hurting one child or another. So
Okay,
I feel that that's never been in question in my 3 decades as an administrator, in public schools, as a teacher or an administrator.
good. That's great. I love hearing it. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Mr. Koch, I should have put this in the email. I have to be somewhere at 11:15. So I'm sorry if I have to pop out at like 11:05. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone knows, and I'm sorry, this just sort of came up.
okay.
All right, thank you.
I'm trying to move as fast as I can. Okay, anything else under dress code?
Mm-mm.
Should we table this and bring it back to when the committee meets again?
Well, if it sounds like everybody is content with the current policy, I can circle back with the community member and let them know that the committee discussed it and is not interested in changing the policy, but I could also give her a copy of the policy.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think the current policy is good and actually addresses the problem, if there is a problem already.
The principals are saying there are no problems. There
Yeah.
are a couple young students at the elementary school who wear sometimes, glittery headbands or so forth that may have kitty ears or something to that nature, as just something that goes with their outfit or something they like, but it's not in the capacity that anybody's identifying as an animal in any official capacity or anything of that nature.
I think you just leave it to the discretion of the individual building principal. It's no different than any kind of, T-shirt or something that has some kind of derogatory statement on it or whatever, or any other type of, dress that is going to distract from the educational process. And I think they have the authority to do that. I don't see any need to make any changes in it. And I certainly think the furry ridiculousness is certainly fits into that category of this educational distractions, especially at the secondary level.
okay, so if I read the general tenor of the majority here, the dress, you're willing to leave the dress code policy as it is.
Correct.
Absolutely. It sounds, I'm really confident after hearing what Dr. Martin said. That's great.
Okay. Next, it's, before we cover the meeting, I'd like to set number 4 aside, come back to it after we go through the remaining policies, and then we would be in a better position to decide what we do about future policy committee meetings. Okay,
Okay.
let's go to policy 2027, controlled substances.
Hmm. Yeah.
So there were some updates from PSBA. You see that in bold, and the administrative team recommends moving this forward in June if the committee doesn't have any concerns or issues for revising.
No, easy peasy. Love it.
Okay, move to have this on first reading in the June meeting. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay,
Yep,
let's
I'm
go.
good with that.
Anyone else? Okay, can we go to policy number 237, electronic devices?
So this was policy too that had some updates from PSBA recommended. I had Megan Hall work with the technology department and all of the principals to kind of go over the recommended changes and make the most appropriate choices there. So what you see is what we're recommending to you. So if there's any questions, Megan's also here to help answer from the perspective of that group.
Okay, any other questions or comments on electronic devices?
I do, Mr. Koch.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Dr. Martin and Megan and everyone there, does this affect or have any connection to what the discipline is as far as when they confiscate a student's cell phone? Or is that something completely a separate issue? Is that would be an AR or something like that? The only reason why I'm asking is because of what I mentioned earlier with Jersey Shore School District, that they, upon the principal, administrative, whether or not they're taking away the phone at the time, the child cannot get the phone at the end of the school period, school day, excuse me, the parent guardian can pick it up the following day. And they said it had a tremendous effect as far as the use. So that's why I'm asking, is that something that's totally separate from this, or will that be another discussion on another meeting, or
So the policy itself gives the administration the authority to uphold the consequences that are listed in the handbook for the violations of the policy.
okay, so when we do look at the handbook again, gosh, I don't remember what month that is. That's when that would be the good time to talk about it then, right?
So what you're talking about does happen on occasion. However, if a parent would come to school on the same day to retrieve the phone, I don't believe that and Mark, maybe you want to weigh in from the legal side of this. I don't believe that you can not give back private property to a parent if they're there requesting it, unless it's part of a legal investigation.
Yeah, I mean, if it's part of a legal investigation, then, I mean, quite honestly, it won't stay in the school anyway. The police will take it. If it's a student handbook issue or a violation, again, I would be hard pressed to think that we would have the legal right to keep someone's property from them for any real length of time.
And our handbook does currently outline what I would consider progressive discipline for students with this issue. The first time is as a warning, the second time is confiscation, and the students could get it back at the end of the class period. Like there is a progressive approach to it that ultimately does lead to administrators confiscating that cell phone during the school day and then returning it. And that is outlined in the handbook. So the principals did have a good discussion when we were looking over this policy of, they felt it was really important to be able to keep that right at the building level, to be able to outline those disciplinary procedures as they see best fit. And also as they see not only inappropriateness, but effectiveness. If something is working and helping curb that student behavior issue, then they wanted to make sure they kept, the authority to be able to do that at the building level. So I think this policy does allow for that because it does allow for building administrator discretion in terms of how that's implemented.
Right. Thank you, Megan. I think everyone totally supports that.
Yeah.
Is it possible that someone could, to contact Jersey Shore School District and see if they've had any, if they still have that going? I mean, this is what an employee told me in conversation, which, so I have no, I'm just throwing this out there from a third party. I would personally like to know if they still do it, if it's still very good, or maybe they got rid of it altogether. I just don't feel comfortable myself calling, because of people don't like it when I call. But if someone in administration would like to, that would be ideal, just so we all know and just get back to us, maybe in an email or something. Whether or not they still keep the phone for 24 hours and only a guardian or a parent can pick it up.
I don't mind reaching out to someone at Jersey Shore and finding what their policy is and how they apply the discipline standard when they catch somebody. I'll
Yeah, that's
ask.
fine.
Yeah,
That
and
would be lovely. Thank you so much, Mark.
And I do want to note too, Elizabeth, our administrators have also reached out to many other districts to see how other districts are handling. There are some districts who absolutely no cell phones are allowed. So there's extremes either way. And our administrative team has looked at other examples, talked to other districts, and kind of weighed out the pros and cons of different approaches. And this is at this point where they feel like we should land on this particular issue. And
No,
so-
the policy is
Yeah.
great. The policy is great. You guys did a tremendous job. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Mark. Look forward to the update.
Is there any more comments or questions?
Yes, if I may, I know at the one safety committee meeting, we had talked about cell phones, and I had personally asked if we could check with some of these other districts who had just eliminated them altogether, and to see what impact that had on their discipline referrals and in general. But I've never heard anything further on that. Now that Megan mentioned that about the principals reaching out to some different districts, I'd be kind of curious to see what they found. And because I still am a believer that the cell phones create a lot of problems, both outside, which are brought into school, plus in, and I don't know how much they're used in the classroom when there's dead time at the end of a classroom class period. And I don't know, I just still feel that they still create a lot of the issues with the bullying and whatever that goes on. I would just be curious to see if, what the other district's experience has been with that. Maybe it doesn't make that much difference, I don't know, but I still think they're a part of the problem.
Okay, with these questions, I get the idea that everyone's satisfied with the wording of the policy.
Yeah, the policy's fine. I don't have an issue at all with the policy. I think it gives the principals the authority to do what they need to do as far as electronic devices, but.
And I think potentially when it's time to approve the handbooks, the principals could probably give a quick summary of what they learned by reaching out to other districts, because that's where the granular details really lie in the handbooks. So we could also ask them to give a brief statement about the research that they did to land on how it is communicated in the handbooks.
Okay, any more?
I'm sorry, Mr. Cook. Yes, please. Jeff, we brought up an excellent point. In fact, Mr. Mark Kondo, when you reach out to Jersey Shore to help Jeff get an answer to his question, maybe ask them, because that was one thing that individual did say to me, was that they originally started with no cell phones and then it just evolved from there. So that might help you out, Jeff. hearing what the Jersey Shore history was. Okay?
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Then I assume that policy on the electronic devices can be brought up on first reading in the June meeting.
Absolutely, yes. Good job.
Okay, I assume everyone's agreed that, so let's go on to policy 901. Public relations objectives. From the policy committee, any questions or comments?
I'm good. We can move ahead.
Yeah, if the only changes are the bold, it's basically the same as far as I know. It's just that it's detailed nouns.
Okay. Anyone else?
No.
Hearing no further comments, I assume we're ready to move 901 to first reading in the June meeting, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's move on to 902, publications program.
You'll see that all of these 900s, there were just minor updates from PSBA along the way. It's been a while since some of these have been updated by the district. And so no major changes in any content from the policy, just some minor cleanup.
Any further comments or questions?
No, if that's just the change, just what's in bold.
Can we move policy 902 to first read in June?
Yep,
See,
go ahead.
Yep.
Okay, ready to move on to 905, Citizens Advisory Committee.
I honestly don't know the history of this. Ever since I've been, I don't know if anyone's ever even talked about policy 905. So I don't even know if we've ever even had a citizen advisory committee. I mean, I have no history. Maybe Mark, I think you've been here the longest, and Mr. Koch. Is this something the school district's ever done?
I've never heard of it myself.
I've never heard of it either, to be honest with you. I know that at different times we've had different committees with members of the public, but I don't ever recall anything regarding a citizen advisory committee.
What is, I mean, what's the I mean, I hate to sound so stupid, but what's our district's definition? I mean, that would be nice if there was a definition in here. I don't even know what a citizen advisory committee is, to be honest with you. I mean, I can mold it and, you know, sort of, but what is our official definition? And if we have one, can it be put in there? And if we don't have one, can we have one put in there?
So I don't know that it's defined, but the current policy is a little bit different, and it just says that citizen advisory committees can be useful in keeping the board and administration informed with regard to community opinion and representing the community in the study of specific school problems.
Right.
And then it, you know, but I feel like the thing that comes to mind for me that maybe prior to my time in the district that would have fit here would have been when there was a community task force for the budget. I feel like that probably would have fit under this policy from what I'm seeing and from what I know about it, but I think some of you were more involved in that than I was.
I never heard it called that. Maybe that's what they were using. But I still, again, I would like to see a definition of what a citizen advisory committee is in this personally, or somewhere in our policies. Just like we have other committees sort of, you know, that's my 2 cents.
And it doesn't say that we shall create one. It just says that.
Right. It's
can.
out there. It's out there if needed. But you know, if I don't know what it is, how would somebody, I'm just sort of thinking also of the future. I mean, that's my 2 cents. So would it hurt to, I don't see why it would hurt to have a definition of what a citizen advisory committee is. You know.
Is this a form of the PTO or the PTA?
I don't know, Mr. Koch, I don't know.
Or in relation to policy 917 and 918 with the,
It reminds me of something that if there's a specific or particular issue that comes up, such as school safety, that the board could form a citizens advisory group on school safety. It doesn't look like it's for any common or general purpose year after year after year, but if the district decides that there's a reason to have this, and, you know, there are certain issues that can be important in different communities, and then it looks like the board gives you the ability to do that, but it just says that I think this policy makes it more formal because it says that you have to appoint a chairperson and a secretary. And I think the policy is a little more clean than the existing policy.
Okay, any questions or comments?
But I guess I don't know what you're looking for a definition.
Well, I'd like, okay, here's an example. Let's say, the naming rights. A board member says, well, let's also put together a citizen advisory committee.
But as you see under the authority, when it says, when creating an advisory committee, the board shall define the committee's assignment. So I feel like the board would decide if we were going to do, have a committee for a specific purpose, define the purpose of that individual, that committee, include members of the secretary, and make it's more formal.
Okay,
It's not a standing committee. I guess that's what I'm trying to
Right.
say.
right. I would still like to, I mean, it would be a quick Google search on board docs, in the meta search, just to put in citizen advisory committee. And then all the other school districts that use board docs, there's probably a definition out there somewhere, or 4 or 5. I personally would still like to, if someone wants me to do the research, I'm more than happy to do the research, but I don't feel comfortable putting it out there unless there's a definition of what a citizen advisory committee is.
Okay, is there any problems with the wording of the policy?
Not without that, just that one thing, just that one thing.
Do you want it as simple as, you know, a representative group of stakeholders from a particular from the community?
I
mean,
don't know. I've never looked into it. This is the first time it's ever been discussed since I've been part of the school board. That's the thing. I don't know. But I think a meta search on board docs would probably answer the question in like 6
I-
minutes.
Yeah, I'm interpreting it as and I'm doing a search as we've been sitting here, and what comes up is basically it's individuals or volunteers, you know, who volunteer to be on this committee, and that they're basically stakeholders or members that are vested within this, you know, school district or the community.
That's a good word to say too. The word volunteer isn't in this.
Okay, what's
That's
your,
why I'm saying the definition would be really helpful.
so what's your wish at this point?
Move it forward with the definition.
Yeah, I'd feel real good about that.
Okay. Any objections to moving it forward with the definition?
No objections. Go ahead.
That'd be super terrific. Thank you very much. Good
Okay.
conversation.
We'll move it to first read in June with the definition, if that's enough time.
Yeah, I think the key thing is just it's volunteers and stakeholders. Do you want it limited to people who reside within the district? I think that's kind of strict. Because maybe you want some type of an expert.
Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't put a restriction. I would leave that up to whatever board is dealing with this. I don't know. What do you think, Tracy?
Yeah, I think it would depend on the board and what it's for.
The purpose, okay.
Thank you. That's a good question.
Okay, so we're moving 905 to first reading in June with the definition.
Okay.
Let's move on to 906, public complaints. Any problems? Hearing none, can we move this on to first read in June?
Yes, that sounds good.
You okay with that, Mrs. Lynch?
Sorry, my screen wouldn't pop up for me to unmute. I think as long as which I feel confident that Mark and administration, as long as it doesn't conflict at all with the whistleblower policy, or they make together, or maybe they're completely separate. as long as that has been taken into consideration, I'm very happy with this. Thank you.
Okay. Unless there are any objections, we'll move this on to first read in June. On the policy 907. School visitors. Any comments or questions?
Nope, I'm good with that.
Anyone else? Any comments?
I just had one comment, I guess to Mark or anyone out there. If someone doesn't have a driver's license or something like that, would that make is there a flexible way that if someone doesn't have a driver's license that we'd still be able to work with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have our system now where they have to have a photo ID, whether it's a driver's license or a state issued ID of some sort. I can't say that we've had many instances where folks have showed up without an ID whatsoever. But yes, we would be able to work with them in some way, shape, or form. Honestly, though, it would become circumstantial as to why they're there.
Sure.
If they're there to pick up a student, then obviously we need to verify their identity and to make sure that they have the legal authority to take the student. But if they're there just to drop something off, I mean, obviously we're going to treat that a little bit differently. But yes, there are procedures in place to be able to deal with that scenario.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it's flexible enough. That's great. Thank you so much, Mark.
Any other questions from anyone?
No, thank you.
Can we move this on to first read in June? Let's go on to policy 908, relations with parents. Questions or comments?
I just had a stupid question. I mean, under delegation of responsibility, I guess that word loco, I'm pronouncing it correctly, under first page, delegation of responsibility. During the school hours, the board acts in loco.
Yes,
I mean, it's Latin.
it's in
Local-
loco parentis.
Yeah, do we need to have that in there? Or can we use English?
No, that's the legal terms for that.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
No, looks great. Thank you so much.
Everybody agreed to move this to first read in June.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Hearing no objection, let's go on to 909, municipal government relations. Questions or comments? Hearing none, are we ready to move on to this one to first read in June? Any objections?
No objection.
Okay,
I-
let's,
Oh, I just had a quick question. And under delegation of responsibility, to the last line, to maintain cooperation with the municipality, blah, 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 the superintendent or designate will meet periodically. Now, and I don't see that it's attached to any legislation. So when it says will meet periodically, to me, that's the same as shall meet periodically. And I don't believe a superintendent, unless there's something, pressing, needs to go to municipal meetings. That's something a board member could do or somebody else. But anyways, I don't like the word will in there. May meet. But will, to me, that just sounds like, that's sounds a little like shall.
okay, so want to substitute may for shall or?
Will, delete will and put may.
Any questions or comments from anyone? Okay, let's replace Will with May. Any further questions or comments?
I think under delegation of responsibility, it could say the superintendent or designee, because I think the Act 44 officer is the one who is actually responsible for that with the updates in the law.
Yeah, that would be great. I was wondering about that too.
Okay, anything else? We ready to have that on first read in June? Any objections?
Nope, looks good. Thank you.
Let's go on to policy 910, community relations. By the way, if anybody feels I'm pressing you or hurrying this up, but you don't appreciate it, let me know. Okay, what about policy 910? What's your comments or questions?
Under purpose, can we consider getting rid of the word environment in the first sentence and just change it to culture or some other thing besides the word environment? Environment is good and it works, but culture seems to be more what do you call it? The word environment is actually has a very negative connotation right now. It's no big deal. Just a thought. It's no big deal.
Any other comments or questions? Everybody satisfied with policy 910?
I'm fine with it the way it is.
Okay, well, then we'll move 910 into the June meeting on first read. The news media relations. 911. Questions or comments?
I think it's fine as is.
I'm sorry, again, it's just text. It's just the first sentence. Can we add the word such as, but not limited to? When it says representatives of local press, radio and TV. I mean, now we have, where can't you find social media, web, blah, blah, blah. Can it just say something instead of trying to list every possible news outlet out there? Maybe just add that. Such as, but not limited to.
So what's the wish of?
That's fine. That's fine.
Add not limited to, is that right?
Yeah, such as, but not limited to local press, radio and TV.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
No, thank you.
Can we move 911 to first read in June with the change that we just made? Everybody understand it?
Yep.
Let's go on to 912. Relations with educational institutions. Any questions or comments?
No, it looks great. This is something I think we all really rally about together. This is a good one.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Everybody okay with moving this to first read in June?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, 912 will be in June meeting first read. 913.1 commercial activities.
Yeah, Tracy, remind me, I think this came up when I first came on the board. Stephen Havley, that was it. I think he wanted to start putting advertising on the athletics page, webpage. And I guess it was, I honestly never heard a final report, but I'm assuming it worked out okay, or maybe Dr. Martin because that was the idea, I think, when this first came about, was, it might have been Rose Amelia. Yeah, doesn't matter. To try to get advertising on our web pages to help fund X, Y, and Z. Is that what this was? Does this ring a bell, Tracy, or?
I recall the discussion when we did the 600 policies, that there was wording in there, and what we wanted to make sure was there was no wording in the 600 policies under finance that would prohibit us from garnering advertisements. And it was determined that there was no prohibition of that. And so that was permitted.
Right.
And
And if we can just get rid of the I mean, it's just text again, I realize, but the under delegation of responsibility, for some reason, that seems to be the word of the day. The superintendent and or his, her designee. It's just a freaking pronoun typo. No biggie. Same with it when under advertisements. Tracy, you know that little search word. There's a couple of them in there. No biggie. But if we could just get rid of those, please.
Okay.
okay. Any further questions or comments on 913.1? Can we move that to first read in June?
Yeah, I think that'll really be super terrific, especially with the naming rights thing and the advertising. It's like
Okay,
perfect timing.
seeing no objection, we move that to first read in June. Policy 914, relations with the intermediate unit. Questions or comments?
My comment is not about the policy itself, but following with this policy, and what I know from other school districts is that every school board elects a person to represent the district at IU 10, but at our meetings, there's no report back to the board from that representative. And so, Jeff, I know you are that rep, but there's a lot of things that go on that IU 10 board that may or may not, or I feel like should maybe be reported out. So I didn't know if that was something that the board wanted to consider doing in the future, just as an idea.
Dr. Martin, if I can jump in, that would be super terrific. In fact, on our policy for agendas, hopefully I'd like to talk about that in the near future. That's another discussion. But in the agenda, anytime, if you look at other school districts' agendas, I have my notes, but you'll notice that like we have committee, but they also have, some of them have, I think they call it other committee, or they have like a line there. So like if you have an unusual thing that a board member did or another committee that happened, you don't have to keep changing the agenda. So it has sort of like a placeholder. That was it. Placeholder. So this would be a perfect example of changing the agenda and editing it. So there's a placeholder for other committee reports.
It could easily go under, because we have a PSBA representative too, right? It could easily go under information discussion, and it could be added under that any time the board wishes to have it there. But I think there are monthly meetings for the IU 10 board. And in my experience with other districts, it's on the agenda under information discussion periodically. And sometimes that person has some things to report and sometimes they don't. And it's usually a very quick, brief update, such as where they are with their budget, things that we should be expecting, maybe some additional services they're thinking about offering, or in the case of IU 10, they've been looking for a new location for quite some time. And they recently, was it last night, Jeff, maybe had an open house for their new location. So, I thought maybe it was just an information discussion item that that delegate or also the PSBA delegate could provide those updates, either when they have them or just regularly, whatever you think, but just an idea.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. Because those should always be just, we're updated on and edit the agenda so we can do this. However we decide to edit it.
Okay, any further questions on policy 914? Are we ready to move this to the June meeting or do we need?
Yes, good.
Okay, let's move it to the first reading in the June meeting. Let's go on to policy 915, relations with the PTO booster organizations. Questions or comments?
I actually had a comment. I would really like it if, and maybe administration has already done this. Maybe they have. Just as a, so they have a voice, so they know how important they are to us. I mean, the district is allowing, is there like a head booster club person in administration, or like who oversees the booster club? Would that be athletics director? I don't know. Whoever this person is, if they haven't already had a chance to look at this for comment, or maybe they want to see something added, or maybe that makes them happy. I don't know, but giving them a chance to have a voice and then bringing it back to us. I mean, unless you have to have this, moved ASAP.
Okay,
Are no major changes to it, but in actuality, the building principal would be the point person responsible for PTO, and the principal or athletic director for the booster clubs would be the direct point of contact, but we can certainly share this with them prior to moving it forward in June.
okay, so is it recommended then that we table this?
I would like to, just so they feel like they have a voice, if anything.
Well, we can do both. We can get it to them and move it forward in June. And if they want changes, we'll bring it back to the committee.
That would be lovely. That would
Okay,
be-
so let's move it to the June meeting and first read. Any objections?
No, thank you so much. And also there's a she, he thing in there. Tracy will find it ASAP. I know.
Oh, I thought
Just
we
a
found-
typo.
Is there another one that we?
Yeah,
One.
page 3 of 4. Yeah, they pop up. It's,
Okay, let's move on to the PSSA PIN plus release in May.
So this was just informational for you. We did get a PSBA. This PNN Plus is a service we pay for through PSBA. So when there are policies that need revisions based on changes in laws or anything that's coming up, or lawsuits or cases. So what they're recommending basically is that we relook at these policies in the 800. So the next time we meet, and I'm going to need a little bit of time to go through this. I've set up a meeting already with technology department, the business office, relevant folks and HR to discuss the records management and the, information breaches and notifications, as well as data governance and data storage. I think most of you are aware this is a hot ticket item for a lot of, actually across the nation, across the world. So I think it would be prudent of us to go back and review and revise these policies prior to our next policy committee meeting. But again, that's going to take a little bit of time.
Okay, so that was for information purposes.
Yep. So you could expect that to come in the future. And then since we've gone through all the 900s, that concludes what we were expected to do for the spring. And our next task on the cyclical review is to start attacking the 300 policies. But I would start probably with these couple 800s and any other PNNs that come out over the summer. And then we'll dive into the 300s in the fall.
Okay, let's go back to the meeting scheduled. I originally said let's cancel July and June and July policy committee and meet in August. Is there anybody that has any problems with this?
I'm okay with waiting until August.
Mr. Koch, I'd like to just give my 2 cents. First, I truly believe everyone needs a break. Okay. Everybody needs a break. But I do feel that we really, the board needs to consider this. Tracy Smith, thank you for always making this comment that, the 000 policies, just wait until a board retreat. And then Jeff Johnston made a comment about another meeting that, we already attend too many meetings. I don't see a board retreat happening anytime in the near future, and I could be wrong, but it just seems that these non-controversial things like a couple tweaks to the agenda, adding a student to be on the board in some capacity. I don't know, there was like 2 other ones, and they're not controversial. I just feel that we have the capability to spare trying to put together a board retreat to talk about something that is so non-controversial. So I would like, at a bare minimum, if we don't want to do it in June at a policy meeting, then it goes on the agenda in August. And I can email Wayne or Tracy Long or just these couple of policies that we've been talking about for about 1.5 years and just finish it. So, that's where it is. And I just don't think trying to get everyone together for a board retreat when everyone is already doesn't want any more meetings as it is. So that's how I feel about it. I mean, if they were controversial issues, but these aren't. It's easy peasy. We can just get it done. So that's what I have to say, Mr. Chair. What do you say?
Okay, after all that, you agree that we can have off in June and July. Hello, Mrs.
I'm
Lynch.
sorry, I have to mute. Just a minute, please.
I guess I'm not clear on what, I think what she was saying is she does want to meet the policy committee in July, unless I misunderstood that, but I'm not sure what policies you're referring to that you would want to do in the summertime.
I'm so
Yeah,
very sorry. My dog exploded. Mr. Koch, I did not hear a word you said. I'm so sorry.
Nope.
I don't feel that it's, it's not is it a dire situation to have a meeting in June? No. And I truly respect that people need a break. I really do. They deserve it. Okay. It's just that these couple of non-controversial agenda items about the 000 policies, and let's just put them on the agenda and just put a recommendation together and send it to the board. And so we can just move forward.
Okay, so you're okay with having off in June and July?
I am. I mean, I wish we, but I respect the fact they need a break. Me personally, I would love to have a meeting in June, but the administration, everybody, they need a break. So,
Any other comments or questions? All
So
right.
we're going to circle back up in August, but I guess what I'm unclear about is then we're moving into we're doing these 800s in August and then in September, moving into the 300s.
whatever's on your cycle, but I definitely want to get those 0 policies on the August agenda so we can just get them over with.
But they were done. I think they're not on the cycle to be done because they were done.
Yes, but there's a couple of modifications that I would like we talked about, and we were going to do it during a board retreat, but that's just it's not feasible. And it just seems to be a waste of everyone's time when it's something that we can just knock out real quick.
Well, the one specifically for the student on the board, Dr. Martin was waiting for the student government to reorganize and
Right.
decide how they wanted to do it. So that may not quite be possible in August, depending on what happens. with
Yeah,
that.
what I can give you an update. As a matter of fact, the students are so excited. They had a wonderful Zoom meeting with another student government from State College last week. And they had one scheduled, I think yesterday or today, with Kerwinsville. And they have decided to partner and they want to do a shadow day, swap days at each of the schools next fall. So they really, Mr. Varelli was excited about the opportunity that they had to share and get ideas. So I thank you for bringing that up, Tracy. I just wanted to say that I did get a recent update on that, and they are working in that direction.
Right. Great.
Any other questions or comments?
So I'll just send those policy numbers to Tracy Long. Is that, and then?
No, you would send them to me and
Okay.
Tracy both because we prepare the agendas together, but I
Okay.
guess the only ones I remember discussing over the past couple of months was 05 and 06.
I think that's it. My notes, I don't have them in front of me. Again, they're non-controversial maintenance update. That's it. Thank you. Okay, I will, Dr. Martin. I can do that in June. May's shot.
Okay, after all the discussion on this, we'll meet the next time in August. Is any objections?
No, we just have to, the public, I think it's already gone out to public notice. So that'll just have to, right?
Yeah,
I think the only thing I would suggest is, and I know this has come up multiple times, Elizabeth, is that when these policies have been brought up to the committee has suggested that it goes to the full board because there's 0 policies. If the policy committee is going to do it, I still think that we should notify the rest of the board that those policies will be discussed at the committee meeting in case they have input. I don't want the committee just to go and do that without their knowledge.
Oh, absolutely. Anyone can, any of the board members can come to any committee meetings. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
any further questions or comments?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Mr. Koch. Perfect
Okay.
timing. I got 3 minutes.
That concludes any further business. Is there anything else to bring up?
No, excellent year. Excellent. year.
Any reasons, are we ready to adjourn?
I think so.
Good,
Everybody,
thank you.
thank you very much. I
you.
appreciate it, folks. I think we had a good meeting. Thank you very much. We now stand adjourned.
What would you like for breakfast?